In California, the state government is planning or hoping to get a bill passed, the California Elder Abuse Bill, protecting LGBT old people. And so, according to the National Review, the California legislator is pushing a bill of rights. So what this is, if an LGBT man or woman is in a nursing home and he is a man but thinks that he is a woman, the workers, the employees have to call him a woman, even though the reality is he is a man. And if the employees don't do it, they could be fined up to $1,000 and a year in prison. Isn't that amazing? I have with me Biro. Robin Biro. He is a political director for the Democratic Party and LGBT rights activist from Atlanta, Georgia. Robin, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the invitation. Thank you so much.
This is an amazing bill. So if I own a nursing home and I bring some old people in and there's a man who thinks that he is a woman, but really a man, if I call him a woman, if this bill is passed, I could be fined $1,000 and a year in prison. Is that true?
Yes and no. Let me explain. It has to be knowing, it has to be willful, and it has to be over time and repeated. Like, if for example, let me explain. This person, if they've transitioned and they're a different gender now, and they express to you that they're now a woman and wish to be called a woman, and you repeatedly deny that request as a form of basically mental abuse, you remember the conservatives all the time, like the crazy alt-right people used to always call Michelle Obama a man. Used to offend me so bad. But if she, in her old age, for example, went to a nursing home and kept saying, no, I am a woman, you have to call me a woman, and they kept saying as a form of abuse, referring to her as a man, it would criminalize that. It would make that, because it's verbal abuse.
How many times would they have to repeat it before it becomes a crime?
I have read this bill through and through. It's 9 pages. It does not stipulate that, and I'm not an attorney, so I can't say, but it does, all it says, how these legal things could be. They can be ambiguous. It basically just says repeated over time. So they have got to give us better guidance on that, because I don't know.
And how about the people who know that, let's say a Christian nursing home, people who believe in God, and they know that this person is a man or this woman is a woman and not a man, and isn't it abusive or mental abuse to make them call something that's not as though it is?
I see where you're going with that, and it's not that simple. I mean, consider, if you will, that nature makes mistakes all the time. People are born every single day missing limbs, with birth defects. Who's to say, I'm not God, you're not God. Who's to say it's not possible that someone's accidentally born into the wrong gender? These people, I'm not transgender myself. If these people have struggled all their lives feeling that they were born into the wrong gender, who am I to judge? But the state of California does say that if they identify as a different gender and express that, and these people who are entrusted to care for these old people, and it's just honoring their respect and honoring them with dignity in their final stages of life.
You said you're not to judge, and I'm not to judge, and God is to judge. But why? How can the liberals judge that they're right? Because common sense dictates you're not mistakenly born into a wrong, quote unquote, gender, and just common sense. Why are the liberals judging that as being right?
I do not know, and because I've not had that struggle. I've never felt that way. You've never felt that way. I don't know what it's like. But I've read enough stories. I've known transgender people. I've heard their stories. I understand that they've fought and struggled with this their entire lives. I don't think it's black and white. I think there's some gray area there, and that, like I said, Mother Nature makes mistakes. People are born every day with missing limbs, for example, like I said. So, I mean, I just don't think it's that black and white. And I understand your argument about, the Christian healthcare providers and whatnot, but I just don't think it's that simple. But that's why the reason that California is doing this is because not specifically transgender. The larger issue was this is protection of all LGBT, because there were some gay people that were getting abused, that their spouses of 20, 30, 40 years weren't being allowed to come visit them on their deathbed. Their powers of attorney the healthcare power of attorney were not being honored, that kind of thing. So this
Robin,
is just one element of it.
I find it's amazing that when the homosexuals first wanted to come out of the closet, they lied and said they just wanted to come out. And the normal people allowed that to happen. And now we're at a point where these people are trying to make you accept a man who think that he's a woman, or a woman who think that she's a man. And just because they switch body parts, who they are doesn't change. They're still a man or a woman. And now they're trying to impose this upon normal society as a norm. Isn't that insane?
Like I said, you're getting into the weeds here with the transgender issue. We're evolving on this issue. This is something that we've only come to understand within the last 20, 30 years. And I myself am evolving and growing. I'm an openly gay man. I was the first openly gay Army Ranger. I mean, I had my own issues, right? But I've not had this issue to deal with. And I remember. Let me back up a second. I remember. I'm 42 years old. I can remember when the gay rights movement was just gay, lesbian, and bisexual. We added the transgender because they had a struggle. They were a marginalized community, and they were vulnerable and needed protection. And we had the tools, the legal tools in place to be able to protect them. So we did.
Define mental abuse for me. Define that.
I mean, common sense dictates what mental abuse is. It's anything deliberately said to try and hurt or harm someone. And as a healthcare provider, that should be criminalized. It should be illegal. But that's what they've offered the stipulations, that it has to be knowing, it has to be willful, it has to be repeated over time. So you're talking about a healthcare provider, if you will, that repeatedly goes up to a transgender person and says, to try and humiliate them in front of their friends, call them the wrong gender. And I gave the example of Michelle Obama because, say, for example, she was in an old folks home and some conservative person kept calling her Michael Obama, as I always hear the alt-right conservative people say.
Well, let me ask. So if this bill should pass and the healthcare provider or employee is mentally abused by having to go against what they know is right, can they sue the transgender person or the government or someone because they're being mentally abused as well?
In this country, you know as well as I do that anybody can sue anybody. It's up to the courts whether or not it's a frivolous lawsuit. So,
why not love the transgender people enough, the homosexuals and the transgender people enough? Why not love them enough to show them how to overcome, rather than deceiving them, pretending that an abnorm is a norm, and they get stuck in this life for the rest of their lives, and they're unhappy people. It doesn't matter how many laws you pass, they're still unhappy people because they're living an abnormal lifestyle.
I disagree with that. And the same argument was made with gay people 20, 30 years ago, that we were an unhappy people and that we needed to overcome the fact that we were gay. So that's why, 20, 30 years ago, we had conversion therapy. I myself went through that because at the time it was seen as a compassionate thing, right? The people, if you're straight, it's seen at the time until 1974, being gay was seen as a mental illness. And there was attempts to try and convert us. I went through that, and I went through a Christian program that tried to teach me how to overcome being gay.
Are you
So I understand your argument, but it's misguided.
are you a Christian?
Absolutely. I go to church. I believe in God.
Were you raised by your father and mother?
Yes, I was.
And who were you closest to?
I'm close to both I speak regularly and visit with my family.
But who are you closest to, your father or mother?
I'm not going to choose sides, both of them, sir.
Robin, this is not fair to normal, common sense people that this government would even consider passing a law that will force them to accept something that they know is not so. And to me, this would be mental abuse. How about the civil rights, and how about the free speech, and how about the rights of the workers and the person that owned the nursing home? Don't they have a right to say no to this?
Jesse, I want to back up a little bit. What do you define as normal, if I may ask?
A heterosexual man and woman.
Okay, so I'm abnormal then?
Homosexuality itself is abnormal, and it's something that you can overcome. But if you accept it as being normal, then you're stuck there, and you're not going to be happy the rest of your life because you're in a fallen state, and you can overcome that fallen state. But let me ask.
Sure.
So let me ask, isn't it, what about the civil rights or the freedom of speech for the workers and the person who own the company? Don't they have a right to reject this?
Elder abuse does not constitute freedom of speech, Jesse.
It does. If you know that this person is a man or a woman and they want you to call them what they're not, and you could be fined for not going along with the lie, that's abusive. That takes away the rights of the workers. Is that fair to the workers?
If you, sir, were in an older assisted living facility or retirement home, and I, as your healthcare provider, even you as a straight heterosexual man, if I, as your healthcare provider, continually harassed you every day and called you ma'am and sissy and woman, sissy, woman, she, anything like that, just to humiliate you, do you think that is my constitutional right to free speech?
No, you would
someone
get
that's
fired.
paid to be your healthcare provider?
You would get fired because that's not how you should act at work.
Right.
But I want to go back. How about the rights and the freedom of the workers? Don't they have a right or free speech not to go along with something that they know is not true? Why should they be punished?
Because you're failing to understand the plight of the community. Like you're a heterosexual man. You're not going to understand what I've been through as a gay man. I feel like I was born to be this person. I tried my very best. You'd have to understand. I went through conversion therapy. I like a biblical version of it. I spent a lot of time trying to convert because I thought if there was to be a choice, it would be much easier to choose to be heterosexual. So I went
all you have to do is to forgive your mother for willfully imposing her nature upon you, causing you to become angry, and as you know, you become like who you hate. And forgive your father for not being a man. And being that example so you can grow up in the right way. Forgiveness will set you free from homosexuality.
Well, my father is a mountain man, and I spent my summers chopping wood and riding dirt bikes. I mean, he set a great example. So I'm not sure I'm following your argument. My mother, strong, independent woman. My parents did divorce, but they had joint custody. So.
How old were you when they divorced?
2, but they have joint custody.
So that's where the trauma happened. The worst thing that can happen to children is for their fathers and mothers to divorce. When children, boys and girls, do not grow up close to their parents in the right way, they have these issues. So if you forgive your parents, so you were closer to your mother because your father was not there. You gave the impression that they both were there and they were not there. I want to ask you this because...
No, they had joint custody.
No, but you've been influenced by your mother. But if you forgive her, you can overcome that spirit. But let me ask, you completed 2 combat rotations. Did anybody you know get hurt or ended up with post-traumatic stress disorder?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question, Jesse.
And what was that like? seeing them go through that?
People handle it different ways. I have a couple friends who I've seen their quality of life disintegrate because they never got help for it. And some they're sort of in a depressive hole and barely able to function because of what they've seen, and they've just kept it all inside and never tried to get help for it. I myself went through quite a bit of therapy and group therapy to overcome these issues. So, because I was diagnosed with PTSD, I'm not ashamed of it. And I mean, I was an Army Ranger, so you can imagine what we do in Afghanistan. So, of course, very graphic, very visceral.
My final question: the president is expected to sign a bill today to end DACA, and this is where illegal alien children were allowed under Barack Obama to come into our country, and Obama executive order was unconstitutional, which prevented these people from being sent back to their country. Are you proud of this great president for overturning Barack Obama's executive order concerning DACA?
Well, DACA was done by executive order, so
Right.
This president has every right to overturn that executive order and govern as he wants to. So I'm not going to say that I'm proud of it at all. I don't agree with it.
But it's the right thing to do, right?
It is his right.
You do agree it's the right thing to do.
To put 700,000. Let me point out that there were, of these, that 91% of these people are employed. It's going to cost our government $3.2 billion. And these are students and people that were going into the military. So no, I personally don't think it's the right thing to do. I think it's going to be the modern day equivalent of the Trail of Tears, to be honest.
That sounds good to me.
It's his right to do.
That sounds good to me because it's going to allow the American citizens to get those jobs and not the people who broke the law to get here. Doesn't that sound right? Put the American people first.
I think it's a difference of opinion. These are students who didn't have a say in the matter. They were children when they were brought here.
But they're still illegals.
Lives here, practically.
They're still illegal aliens. Shouldn't we put the American citizen first?
They've been here for almost their
No, you're not
entire
answering the
lives,
question.
and it's not gonna matter.
The American citizens been here all their lives. So shouldn't they come first?
I understand your point, but I think that this is a humanitarian issue, and we owe it to them. We owe it to them to show what it means to be an American. If they're in school, if they want to join our military and contribute to our society, I think we should let them.
No, you don't reward criminals. Do you know right from wrong?
Of course.
But so far,
I live my life by the golden rule.
I know, but so far with this conversation, you've just been on the side of wrong.
Well, that's a difference of opinion, an ideology. And I can respect that you have a difference of opinion.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Robin. I recommend that folks call the state representatives, let them know you don't like this bill because the Democrats will pass it if you don't respond. Robin, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse, for having me on.
All right,
have
buddy.
a great day.
Okay. So I highly suggest that you call your state representatives here in California to tell them you don't like this bill. This California elder abuse bill protecting LGBT old people. And so believe me, if you are a Christian company, meaning that you believe in God, and you have a nursing home in California, if this bill should pass, they're going to put these folks in your nursing home in order to challenge you, in order to take you to court and destroy your business. We've seen it with the gay cake, with the bakers, the Christian bakers of the gay cakes, and all over. And that's why they're doing this, folks. And they use these words that make it sound like it's so horrible. You have to be nice. You do not want this to happen. So let your representative know I'm not for the LGBT old people bill, the Bill of Rights, because this will destroy your company. These people are not going to go to nursing home where maybe, the LGBT people own They're going to go to the Christian nursing home to challenge you and call you racist or whatever they call you, say that you're discriminating against them, and they're going to destroy you because they want to shut down every bit of truth.